Jorge Masvidal was still fighting in the octagon. If he hated you, he didn't just try to beat you, he tried to end you right then and there. And that's exactly what happened at UFC 239.
Clock is brought to you by Modelo.
When Masvidal had real beef with someone, he made it personal. In the cage, on the mic, and everywhere in between, he was ruthless. Once you got on his bad side, there was no turning back.
I'll fuck that little guy up, man. He's a fucking midget. DanaWhite, president of this motherfucking company, champ.
Ben Askren was just one of many fighters who felt the full force of Jorge Masvidal's hate. So today, we're taking a look at the top 6 UFC fighters Jorge Masvidal hated the most. And what better way to kick things off than with the man who got his lights shut off in record time, Ben Askren. Ben Askren arrived in the UFC in 2019 with a lot of hype. He was an undefeated former Bellator and one championship welterweight champion, known for his dominant wrestling and his outspoken, often mocking personality. Askren wasted no time calling out many of the top welterweights, and Jorge Masvidal quickly became one of his targets. Askren mocked Masvidal's background and fighting skills, even suggesting that Masvidal was simply jealous of his rapid rise in the UFC.
He's pissed that a punk white kid has came into the UFC and is making over double him. My numbers are looking pretty damn good, George, so suck it.
Masvidal didn't take kindly to Askren's taunts. While Jorge was no stranger to trash talk himself, Askren's specific style seemed to genuinely irritate him. Masvidal saw Askren as a guy who talked a big game, but hadn't really proven himself against the elite of the UFC. At one point, Masvidal even called him a punk for refusing to give Robbie Lawler a rematch.
Ben could say and do whatever the fuck he wants. He's a punk. Robbie didn't go to sleep. Let's do it again. I'm gonna fuck you up.
The two finally met at UFC 239. As the fight approached, the tension kept building. Masvidal made it clear he wasn't just looking to win. He wanted to hurt Askren. Askren, for his part, kept confidently predicting an easy victory.
There is no way on God's green earth this guy could do anything to me. I will do whatever I want to this person. I will dominate them. I will humiliate them.
But when they stepped into the octagon in July 2019, something unbelievable happened. Just 5 seconds in, Masvidal landed a flying knee that instantly knocked Askren out cold, sending him crashing stiff to the canvas.
The fight clock is brought to you by Modelo.
It became the fastest knockout in UFC history. In his post-fight interview, Masvidal was unapologetic and clearly enjoyed the moment. He explained that the knockout was a direct answer to all of Askren's trash talk leading up to the fight.
I want to take this time on a personal. That dude was talking wild, man. You know, I had to show him that there's consequences sometimes.
After the KO, Masvidal followed with a few extra punches before the referee could step in. Some fans and analysts questioned if those were necessary, but Masvidal later doubled down, calling them super necessary because of how much he disliked Askren.
So to those people, I would say maybe don't watch MMA, go back to soccer. There's not too many people that I've disliked. I have over 50 pro fights, and he's one of them, you know.
That victory catapulted Masvidal into superstardom. It cemented his BMF, baddest mother F******** status, and opened the door to even bigger opportunities in the UFC. Askren, to his credit, handled the loss with a surprising amount of humor, though it clearly stung. He acknowledged how perfect the knee was and retired from MMA after just one more fight. Since then, he's occasionally joked about being on the wrong end of one of the most iconic knockouts in UFC history. At number 5, we have Kamaru Usman. Of all of Jorge Masvidal's rivalries, his feud with Kamaru Usman was less about personal history and more about a clash for the ultimate prize, the UFC Welterweight Championship. Their story began to take shape in early 2020. Usman was the reigning and dominant welterweight champion, while Masvidal, fresh off a spectacular 2019 where he captured the BMF title and became a superstar, was the clear people's champion and the next logical challenger. During a Super Bowl media day in Miami, the two had a heated verbal exchange, getting in each other's faces and needing to be separated.
Do something, I'm standing right here, do something. Do something. You come up talking, do something.
This moment made it clear that their eventual fight would be a massive event. The first fight was scheduled for UFC 251 in July 2020, set to take place on Fight Island in Abu Dhabi. However, Masvidal was initially in a contract dispute with the UFC and pulled out, being replaced by Gilbert Burns. But just a week before the event, Burns tested positive for COVID-19, forcing him to withdraw. In a dramatic turn of events, Jorge Masvidal agreed to step in on just 6 days' notice. He flew halfway around the world, cut a significant amount of weight, and saved the main event. The build-up in that short week was intense, and Masvidal was loud about the fact that he didn't like Kamaru.
I'm gonna dim your light to make mine's brighter. No, I'm just gonna make my light as bright as I can. And you're at my fight, and then when they're asking you questions, you're saying, who is that guy? I don't know who that is.
And I've known this guy for a while. He wasn't that guy before. He was actually asking for pictures and handshakes back in the day. Now, this guy's just a head case.
However, when they entered the octagon, the fight itself was largely one-sided. Usman implemented his game plan perfectly, using his superior wrestling and clinch work to neutralize Masvidal's dangerous striking. Usman won a clear, unanimous decision, but the story didn't end there. Because Masvidal had taken the fight on such short notice, he had a built-in excuse.
There it is. Well done, gentlemen. Well done.
6 days.
Well done.
We'll run it back.
Well done.
That's not 6 days.
Well done,
We'll run
gents.
it back.
He and his supporters argued that with a full training camp, the outcome would be completely different. Masvidal himself claimed he didn't have the cardio to fend off Usman's wrestling for 5 rounds, and that a fully prepared Masvidal would pose a much greater threat.
There were some areas where I didn't give him enough credit, and there were some areas where I felt with a better training camp, I could definitely surpass him. And I think I showed a lot of my wrestling on.
Usman actively called for a rematch, something a dominant champion rarely does against an opponent they've already soundly beaten. He promised to finish Masvidal this time to leave no room for questions. The second fight was set for UFC 261 in April 2021, this time in front of a packed crowd in Jacksonville, Florida. Masvidal had a full training camp, and the stage was set to see if his claim was true. The build-up to the rematch was even more intense. Masvidal confidently predicted a knockout, believing he now had the conditioning to keep the fight standing.
If Kamaru takes a fight against me on 6-day notice with 20 pounds of cut, I finish him in the first or second round. That's a great fighter. Was I a great fighter that night? Nope. I was not a great fighter that night.
However, when they met in the octagon, things didn't turn out for Masvidal as he expected. The first round was competitive, but in the second round, the feud came to a sudden and shocking end. Masvidal was knocked out cold for the first time in his long 50-fight career, collapsing to the canvas, unconscious. Usman followed up with a few hammer fists on the ground before the referee waved off the fight. It was a stunning and conclusive finish. There were no more excuses or questions. Usman had proven his point in the most dramatic way possible, cementing his legacy as the undisputed king of the division. The next Masvidal most hated fighter is Conor McGregor. It all started in mid-2022 when Jorge began publicly calling out Conor, pushing hard for a fight. He expected McGregor to respond and lock down what he believed could be maybe the biggest pay-per-view fight in UFC history. Instead, Conor stayed silent, then finally fired back on Twitter with a series of harsh replies. But he never agreed to enter the octagon with Jorge. Jorge didn't hold back. He shot back at Conor.
That little dude, bro. I'll fuck that little guy up, man. He's a fucking midget. He was cheering for Nate. He wanted to run it back with Nate. You see, he punches old people in the face because those are fights that he could win.
Jorge shot, called Conor a diva and a coward, saying he knew Conor would be playing with his life if he actually took the fight. He wasn't impressed by McGregor's withdrawal from a UFC return due to a toe injury, saying Conor had bottled it, and that hiding behind injuries wasn't acceptable.
Conor wouldn't accept this fight before. Like, he had always told the UFC he won't fight me. He still won't fight him. He's pulled out. He knows that I got something special, and that's that power. And he knows that I'm going to beat the out of him standing up.
However, UFC President DanaWhite quickly threw cold water on the idea. In a statement that became a central part of the feud, White said Masvidal was too big for McGregor and that it was a bad fight for the Irish superstar.
He's too big for Conor. Conor doesn't belong at 170. He's got the balls to fight at 170, but he doesn't belong there.
Ultimately, the fight never happened. McGregor chose to fight Donald Cowboy Cerrone at welterweight in his 2020 comeback, a move Masvidal criticized as picking an easier opponent. After that, McGregor focused on his trilogy with Dustin Poirier, and Masvidal pursued the official welterweight title against Kamaru Usman. Moving on to number 3, we have LeonEdwards. The bad blood between Jorge Masvidal and LeonEdwards was ignited on March 16, 2019, during UFC Fight Night 147 at the O2 Arena in London. Both fighters secured victories that night. Masvidal with a knockout over Darren Till, and LeonEdwards had also won his fight earlier that night, defeating Gunnar Nelson by split decision on the co-main event. Both men were understandably riding high. In fact, LeonEdwards called out Masvidal for a fight.
I think it's July the 4th in Vegas. I'd love to fight Masvidal July the 4th in Vegas, and that'd be a good fight.
It didn't take long before things got heated up between the two. As Masvidal was conducting a backstage interview with ESPN's Lori Sanko, Edwards could apparently be heard off camera, perhaps heckling or calling out Masvidal. Mid-interview, Masvidal paused, looked off screen, and then what happened next was caught on camera and quickly went viral. In the immediate aftermath, Masvidal was unapologetic. In a subsequent interview, he explained his actions by stating that Edwards had approached him aggressively and told him to shut up. Masvidal claimed he felt threatened and reacted to defend himself.
I'm doing my interview, this hooligan comes by saying some stuff, and July, get your ass kicked to July. So I tell him, just say it to my face. But he put his hands up like this, it's on video, and he walks towards me. Well,
LeonEdwards, understandably, was furious. He labeled Masvidal a coward and a hooligan for the unprovoked attack. He maintained that he was simply trying to state his case for a fight, and that Masvidal's actions were those of a thug. Despite the public nature of their feud, a fight between Masvidal and Edwards never materialized. Various factors, including scheduling conflicts and Masvidal's retirement in 2023 after a loss to Gilbert Burns, contributed to the bout not taking place. The second fighter that was on Masvidal bad book is Nate Diaz. Jorge Masvidal and Nate Diaz are both known for being real street-tough fighters who speak their minds. That's exactly why fans loved the idea of them going head-to-head. Their feud started when Diaz returned to the UFC in 2019 and called out Masvidal after beating Anthony Pettis. Diaz said he respected Masvidal for being a real fighter and wanted to fight him for the BMF title, the baddest in the game.
With this belt, I want to defend it against Jorge Masvidal. Had a good last fight. He ain't no West Coast gangster.
The UFC loved the idea and quickly booked the fight for UFC 244 in New York City. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson even showed up to put the BMF belt on the winner. That's how big it was. When Fight Night came, Masvidal looked sharp. In the third round, Masvidal landed a nasty head kick and opened up a deep cut near Diaz's eye. The fight kept going for a few rounds, but after some time, the doctor stopped it because of the cut. Diaz was furious.
Side position is...
Masvidal won by TKO, but he wasn't happy with the way it ended either. He said he respected Diaz and would have rather finished the fight properly. Right after the win, Masvidal told the crowd he wanted to run it back and give Diaz another shot, just to make things clear. But as time passed, the rematch didn't happen right away. Things stayed quiet for a while, but in 2024, the two finally agreed to fight again, this time in a boxing ring instead of the octagon. Masvidal had recently retired from MMA and was focusing on boxing, and Diaz had already boxed Jake Paul. Still, even though it wasn't MMA, both guys treated it like unfinished business. And as expected, the trash talk began.
take it up with the fucking referee, stop the fight. Take it with the doctor, stop the fight. I'm doing my job.
I didn't want to even box him. I wanted to fight him. I want to beat his ass in an MMA fight. That's my plan.
During one of the press conferences, chaos erupted as both fighters' camps got into a brawl. The brawl even continued right into the backstage area.
Let's go! Let's go!
Diaz went on to win this boxing match by majority decision, evening the score in their head-to-head encounters across different combat sports. Masvidal disputed the decision, suggesting the rivalry might not be entirely over, though Diaz seemed less interested in an immediate trilogy. As far as he was concerned, he had already proven what he needed to. Now, let's talk about the fighter Masvidal hated the most, Colby Covington. Jorge Masvidal and Colby Covington's relationship began as a close friendship. They trained together at American Top Team, ATT, in Florida, with Masvidal mentoring Covington in striking and Covington assisting Masvidal with wrestling. Their bond was strong, extending beyond the gym as they lived together and supported each other in their early UFC careers.
I was an established pro when he came over to American Top Team. I was living up at American Top Team, both on this journey together. We trained together, we played poker together.
Pretty much from day one. They struck up a friendship pretty quick. Colby could up George's wrestling and George could up Colby's striking, so they hit it off pretty good.
However, their friendship deteriorated around 2018, and this was because of a significant shift in Covington's public persona. Covington, fearing he might be cut from the UFC roster due to his wrestling-heavy, and at the time, less crowd-pleasing style, decided to adopt an outspoken, MAGA hat-wearing, trash-talking character. This new controversial identity brought him a lot of attention and arguably saved his UFC career, but it also started to alienate those around him, including Masvidal. The situation worsened when Masvidal accused Covington of failing to pay their mutual coach, Paulino Hernandez, a claim Covington denied. This dispute led to tensions within ATT, eventually resulting in Covington leaving the gym to join MMA Masters.
Then when he had the chance to finally pay back the $12,500, he didn't, so I went out there and paid my coach out of my own.
The animosity between them simmered and then boiled over publicly. Both fighters frequently took to interviews and social media to trade venomous insults. The trash talk became deeply personal, touching on sensitive subjects and making it clear that any hope of reconciliation was long gone. The UFC capitalized on this genuine hatred, booking them to headline UFC 272 in March 2022. The entire build-up to the fight was intense, with security needing to be present at press conferences.
No, but I know about breaking your face, bitch.
I didn't live in your house, bitch. You're a handout little bitch. Piece of shit, bitch. Yeah, that's...
When they finally met in the octagon, the bout was intense. Covington largely dominated the 5-round fight with his superior wrestling. He stuck to his game plan, frustrating Masvidal, who couldn't land his signature knockout blows. And it worked.
After 5 rounds, for the winner by unanimous decision, Colby!
Covington won by a unanimous decision. However, the feud was far from over. Just a few weeks after their fight, in late March 2022, Masvidal allegedly confronted Covington outside Poppy's Steak restaurant in Miami Beach. Reports stated that Masvidal, wearing a hoodie and a surgical mask, sucker punched Covington, chipping one of his teeth and damaging his $90,000 Rolex watch. Covington pressed charges, leading to Masvidal's arrest and subsequent legal proceedings. In November 2023, Masvidal pleaded guilty to misdemeanor battery as part of a plea deal, avoiding jail time but agreeing to pay court costs. Since the alleged attack, both men have continued to speak ill of each other. Their story serves as a stark reminder of how quickly close bonds can shatter in the high-stakes, high-pressure world of professional fighting, especially when mixed with personal betrayals and the demands of self-promotion.